hello, and welcome to the bonus episode of FYI. We're here chatting about American history with a good old American boy, a good old boy, as we say.
Yeah, although I'm 100% British Isles, my four names, I mean, if I used the Spanish system of surnames, apellidos primero,
mother's maiden name,
Vaughan, Adams, Campbell, Crosby. Vaughan is Welsh. Adams is English.
Any relation to founding fathers? Adams over there?
No, maybe.
No, hey, you never know. Distant relatives.
But Adams is a very common name.
That's true.
Vaughan, Adams is English, Campbell is Scottish, and Crosby is Irish.
Okay.
So I cover the British Isles.
So would you be considered a WASP or no? I get confused with what exactly is a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant.
Well, first of all, the Irish are predominantly Catholic.
Oh, okay.
So there could be a fourth of my line that is not WASP.
Okay. Because this is a term you'll hear in the United States. He's very waspy. He's a wasp, right? But it's interesting. When I first moved to Spain, one of the questions I used to ask people when I met them was, what nationality are you? Because in the States, my father's German, my mother's part Irish. Yeah. And here when I got to Spain, I'm like, oops, Spanish.
Well, no, but you can say... No, mi padre fue Vasco. They say my father was from the Basque Country.
Sure.
My mother's father was Andalusian. My mother's mother was from Galicia.
But there it's like I'm part German, part American Indian. You're like, whoa, stop. And usually somebody who's got a lot of mix, we call him a mutt.
Yeah.
Un perro callejero. You
got a mongrel.
A mongrel or a mutt, yeah. I've always had the Mediterranean blood, as you know. My Sicilian and Spanish. My family, even though they think they're very different, they're a lot more similar than they'd like to admit.
You have blood from Almeria and from Sicilia.
Yeah.
Sicily.
So I definitely have Arab blood.
Medio dia. Could be.
Definitely.
Could be.
Definitely some Moorish. If you see a picture of my dad on his passport, he looks Arab.
Well, my best friend in Tulsa, Oklahoma, when I was a teenager, was half Cherokee, half German.
Oh, wow. Interesting, Max.
And my girlfriend, my first steady girlfriend, was 3/4 Italian and 1/4 Irish.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's interesting because you'll meet a lot of people they're not from those places, but they do have family from those places. So it's funny when people say, I'm American. Yeah, with blood from some other place. But I think that's also what has been one of the secrets of the success of the United States. Everybody's welcome. You've got people, from everywhere.
Yeah.
Crisol is how you say it in Spanish? A melting pot.
Yeah.
Guys, it's not a salad. It's a melting pot. A salad, everything remains in its original. The tomato's still the tomato. The carrot's still the carrot. You're making a puree here.
First generation usually has not melted yet.
Right.
If you remember Godfather 2, you remember it when Vito Corleone is young.
Yeah.
It's in Little Italy.
Sure.
You're saying, so everybody was Italian.
Absolutely. And even Martin Scorsese said, he goes, the people who lived on your block in Sicily would live in the same building with you in New York. So you just literally brought the whole neighborhood over.
That's right. That's very typical with immigration. And it was very helpful for American immigration. But because
they helped each other.
Children of those people often went off and lived.
They broke free.
They broke free and
also
blended.
Those ghettos kind of disappeared because you can't live in New York wherever you want. You can live wherever you can afford. So it gets to a point where it's like, you want to live there? Well, the price just tripled.
For example, around Paris, you have the ghettos of the Algerians and Moroccans and things, and they have third generation still living in the same ghettos.
That's weird, because in the States, usually we become, I hate to say, Americanized. Like, you keep your traditions. Yeah. I still listen to Raphael in my house, and we eat fideuà and paella, but... Yeah. That's one of the things I love about the United States. Nobody has ever made me say, I'm Spanish, I'm Italian, and I'm American. You don't have to choose. You can be American, and your heritage is still your heritage. Yeah. So one thing doesn't take away from the other thing. It adds to it, if anything.
People usually don't even notice or ask about these things. I mean, I lived in a neighborhood in Houston when I was little. When I was in my first 3 years of primary school, I would say half of the people were Jewish.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It seemed that the post-apocalypse,
war.
The Holocaust.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah.
A lot of people from the East that managed to get out of Europe, the colony moved down to Houston.
Oh, I believe it,
and if you look at the class pictures when I was 8 years old, half of the people looked very Jewish.
Right, like Eastern European Jewish.
Yeah.
Sure.
Ashkenazi Jews. And so for me, it was natural, normal.
Well,
my two best friends
New
were
York
Jewish.
is Jew York.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
if you don't like Jewish people, you're in the wrong city.
But in New York, you see a lot of the
Hasidics.
Yeah.
Oh, they're different. I don't even think the Jewish people like them.
But in any case, it's a mixture. But Spain originally was that way too.
Yeah.
Spain
the
originally
Sephardic,
had with the Jews as well. I would say maybe 10% or more, even 20% of the people who live in Spain have Jewish blood.
Sure.
Because so many in 1492, when the Catholic monarchs expelled the Jews, they gave them the choice of staying and converting. And many more, a lot of Jews converted.
Or converted on paper.
Quote, unquote.
Right.
Later secretly.
Oh, yeah, I'll convert. Don't worry. It's that or leave? Well, I'll convert.
But see, Spain is also a melting pot because you have Germans, the Vandals and the Sueves and the Visigoths.
Yeah, and the Etruscans, even Valencia, back in the, literally everybody's been on this peninsula.
But it goes way back. I mean, the Celts, the Iberians, the Celt-Iberians.
And you can see all those
Romans.
Influences, too. Yeah. The Moorish, that's one of the cool things. Everybody's left their mark.
Yeah.
You go down to Cordova and you're like, oh my goodness, what happened here? Wow. It's incredible. And all right, well, I want to let's pick up a little bit where we left off. That's a very teacher phrase there. Let's pick up where we left off. We were talking about the Civil War. And this was a huge turning point, obviously, in American history. How long did it last? Excuse my ignorance. 4.5 years.
61 to 65.
The North, the Yankees, as we were called, were victorious.
Yeah.
And how did that change? I mean, we know slavery was abolished after that, but as you said, it wasn't just about slavery. It was about keeping the Union together.
Yeah. Well, the South suffered terribly, and the South didn't wake up until 80 years later, really.
Okay.
From the point of view of dynamism, of a dynamic. In fact, the dynamic wake-up of the South coincided with the introduction of air conditioning in the 1950s.
Ah, interesting.
No, it's because the climate down there leads to a bit of lethargy.
Sure. Well, Almeria is the same. How do you expect people to run around in 38-degree weather?
But you see, Almeria is dry.
Yeah.
Whereas
the
American
humidity.
South is humid.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So you've got, 35 degrees, 40 degrees, and it's humid.
You take a shower and you're sweating bullets instantly.
Yeah.
It's like you didn't even shower. Sure. I know that New York is extremely humid.
And that has an incredible impact on productivity.
Yeah. It makes you drag your ass around. Yeah. It's normal.
But with the introduction of air conditioning, the South woke up. Atlanta, New Orleans, Dallas, Texas,
Atlanta becomes
Houston.
a major center now.
Yeah. Yes.
It's airports.
Jacksonville, Florida, Tampa, Columbia, South Carolina, a lot of just grew. But the most important thing after the Civil War was the industry necessary to maintain the war for the North then was in a position to be really powerful, and that began what we call the great barons and magnates. Andrew Carnegie,
gotcha,
John
Astor,
Rockefeller,
right.
The banking system,
steel, railroads.
We see that,
which are all part of the infrastructure of constructing and
we see to build California. The California Gold Rush also made California strong.
Sure, people were flocking there from
and. There was a lot of immigration from Scandinavian countries and from Ireland.
Okay.
And from Italy, but Italy came a bit later. Ireland suffered the potato blight.
Oh, right.
In 1846. Yeah. Mm-hmm. They were monocultivo.
Oh, they only had one crop.
Potatoes.
Gotcha.
1 million Irish people died of hunger.
Oh, wow.
Another million immigrated to the United States. Mm-hmm. And they basically immigrated to Boston and to New York.
Oh, I was going to say, I know where half of them are.
Well, it's Leonardo DiCaprio in the movie, Scorsese's movie.
Right. The Wolf of Wall Street, or no, it's the, is it the Wolf of Wall Street?
No, it's the one with...
Gotcha, The Departed.
No.
He's his new Robert De Niro.
Oh.
The Irishman.
What's the name of the Irish actor who's won the Academy Awards 3 times?
The Irish...
For... My Left Foot and...
I'm trying to think of his name. I know who you're talking about, and I'm drawing a blank.
All right. Mm-hmm. But in any case, they were fighting clans. The clan is in New York?
Yeah.
What was it called?
Gangs of New York.
Gangs of New York.
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yeah, Daniel Day-Lewis.
All right, I knew it would come to me.
Is it strange because he's Irishman, but he played the Italian.
Yeah, and what a great job he did, huh?
Well, he's a spectacular actor.
Excellent actor.
But you see, the the industrialization, the United States was so big. Irish and Italian and immigrants were going to New York, especially, and to Boston.
Including my family.
But Scandinavian, you see, Scandinavia, Norway and Sweden suffered the same type of potato blight.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
And they went into Chicago and out into the Midwest.
Gotcha.
So Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa,
A lot of Scandinavian.
and parts of Illinois. You have a lot of blondes and blue-eyed Scandinavians there.
And now that I think about it, I have some friends who are Icelandic and
and they were good farmers.
Okay.
And they were the ones who really opened up Iowa, Nebraska, the south of
what
Wisconsin.
is now our breadbasket.
The breadbasket.
Yeah.
There's a very good novel called Giants in the Earth that talks about.
I was going to ask you that. Any for further reading or any series you can recommend? I mean, something simple where they can follow along. Because
Wikipedia.
Well, so much has happened, though. Really, so much has happened in 250 years.
Yeah.
Wars, World War wars, our own personal wars, the Great Depression, which, that was another turning point, I imagine, in the world, not just in the United States.
Yeah. But, they had to connect California by rail.
Right.
And so to finance the railways, ferrocarriles, across such an enormous expanse of territory, they gave 1 mile on each side of the rail to the local people.
Oh, like a grant of sorts.
Yeah, a grant. So they would create settlements, and it was a way of financing the railroads.
Oh, wow. So they say, listen, you want a railroad, you're going to live here, but we'll work together to get it up.
You get it up. And so that created a national market from
connected
coast to
the country. It was their first internet, so to speak.
And of course, that was Andrew Carnegie with the steel industry, and then Henry Ford, Thomas Edison.
They called them the robber barons, as you said, right? They were called
sometimes
because they were ruthless.
J.P. Morgan. I think you had to be.
Yeah, well, it was the Wild West, quote unquote. Like you had to take or be taken.
I mean, not even that. I mean, even Fred Kellogg to create Kellogg's cereals. I mean, or Mars bars. They were ruthless.
Sure. And now that's why there's still brands, known brands, household names today.
And so that took us. That's what. A period of American history that is called Manifest Destiny.
Oh, I remember studying that, yeah.
And that means there was a destiny for America that was manifest. I mean, it was a very incredible optimism.
Right.
Ruthless
and
optimism.
This was about what time, what decades was this?
Between 1875 and 1910.
Okay.
I would say, just before the First World War.
First World War, right.
And that it's epitomized the greatest by Teddy Roosevelt. The American imperialism, because the Spanish-American War, La Guerra de Cuba, was in 1898. It lasted 7 weeks. So
it was a short one,
But the United States gained control of Cuba, Puerto Rico, the Philippines, and Guam.
It kind of gave us our wings, so to speak.
Or it gave us a conviction. Okay,
say, wait, we got this. Everybody's falling in line. Yeah.
And so that began in the construction of the Panama Canal.
Right. Oh, wow. Sure. Which was originally being done by the French, and then we took over.
Yeah. The French tried, after the success of the Suez Canal for the French, they tried in Panama, but because of the different climate.
Mosquito. I mean, there were tons of problems.
Yellow fever. And they gave up. And then the United States in around 1902 went down and started until 1914. Now, they started their imperialist ways because Panama was part of Colombia.
Okay.
And they managed to break it away and create the United States created Panama.
Its own. I was going to say, it's its own. It's its own country, but who's calling the shots?
Yeah.
Right.
And so they built that canal, and then
what a feat, huh? Yeah. It's amazing.
But it was incredible because the world was very, very. The gross world product. Producto
Doméstico Mundial. Yeah.
Producto Mundial Bruto. In 1914, before the outbreak of the First World War, was not equaled until 1956.
Oh, wow. So it was just a boom in every sense of the word.
Yeah, there was a lot. I mean, the Titanic was one of the epitomes of this boom.
It was like the Tower of Babel kind of thing. We were like, we're going to build bigger, stronger. We didn't see any limitations to our growth.
And then the silly First World War broke out because of competing imperialisms among European monarchs.
Sure. Rich people sending poor people to fight.
And that destroyed everything. And that brought in ideologies, communism, socialism, anarchism, anarcho-syndicalism, all kinds of crap.
Right, you name it. Yeah.
And then we went in, then Germany was suffering during the 1920s because of the hyperinflation they suffered.
Right.
Not only the Versailles Treaty at the end of the First World War.
Which left them pretty hands tied,
And so it was a spawning ground for people like Adolf Hitler.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And then the rest is history. We know what happened in the 1930s.
Right.
And also in 1929 with the stock market
I was going to
crash.
ask you, how did that, I mean, I know it affected the world, but how did it affect the United States?
Oh, it was a 30% unemployment.
30%, wow. My grandfather says he remembers they were poor as dirt, and he remembers they had eels in the bathtub. And those were to eat.
Yeah.
They had live
Anguila.
eels, anguilas, in the bath. He goes, because that's all we had. And he goes, and I don't eat eel to this day.
You see, my parents were born in the early 1920s, which means they lived the best years of their youth.
The Roaring 20s, right?
Well, it was called the Roaring 20s up to 1929.
Gotcha. So it was before. Gotcha. Okay.
No, well, of course, there was nothing roaring after 1929.
After 19, that was
October 1929. But the Roaring 20s because there was a boom in the United States.
Yeah.
It was a boom in France as well. There was a boom in several places. And Germany was coming out of its hyperinflation.
Mm-hmm.
But the depression, the stock market crash and the resulting depression
it threw the world off track, really, basically.
And it set things up for the later Second World War.
And what do you think was, I mean, I know there are many, what do you think caused bad spending, bad investments, or was it on purpose?
Too much euphoria in the stock markets because it was a booming times.
Yeah, so people, we can't fail. Everything's going to go up.
It always happens. It happens every
boom and bust,
15 years.
They say, right?
You go back to the Netherlands in the 17th century, the tulip bust.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, tulipanes, the tulip bust.
Sure, I remember.
But it always happens. The crash of 1896, the bank panics of 1854.
Every 30 years or so, there's some kind of...
It's human nature.
Right. It's a pendulum of sorts, too. It swings both ways.
It's human nature.
Yeah.
The intelligent people who are doing their homework withdraw in time, and the rest are putting their money in.
Sure. They say the best time to make money is during a crisis. That's what they say.
Well,
if you have it to invest, that's when opportunities knocking.
In Spanish, they say, "A río revuelto ganancia pescadores."
That's when there's opportunity everywhere. You just have to have the money to invest, the idea, whatever it is, to make it happen. Interesting. And let me ask you about the American dream. Where did this whole idea come from? The fact that if you worked hard in this country, you could have your white picket fence, your two-car garage.
Well, because it's basically true.
Yeah, well, but was it something that came through like literature, or where did we get? Where was it born?
The literature came from the reality.
Gotcha.
The reality didn't come from literature.
Okay.
Because when the Europeans began to penetrate into the landmass that is North America. I mean, I repeat, the Indian population was extremely sparse.
Yeah.
They were not really an important impediment. The poor Indians. I mean, I feel sorry for them.
Yeah, they were there, but they weren't taking up any of the land, really.
They were basically hunter-gatherers.
Yeah, they were doing their thing.
It was the Steel Age meeting the Stone Age or Bronze Age.
Gotcha.
You see. It was just like 6,000-year difference. In development.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And so they moved in, and they always saw it created optimism. Podemos, we can do it.
Yeah, which is that gung ho American.
And there was very little
attitude.
Government. There was no aristocracy.
Oh, okay, right.
There was no caste system like in India.
Yeah.
Or really no class
where you could never
system.
Move into another, no matter what you did.
Yeah, and it's basically still the same.
Well, in Spain, sometimes I feel like it's that way. If you're not in the club, if you don't have a cuñado, you're not coming in.
It is true that in Spain, it's as important who you know as to what you know.
Yeah, it's true. Contacts here are so important. But in the United States, there's this, and they've said it since the beginning. My father's a perfect example of it. The American dream. A guy, 16 years old, kid, not a guy, crosses from Spain, from a little farm town, a little hamlet, goes to Queens, New York City, starts working at a factory, starts learning the language, washing dishes at the World's Fair. Now he's retired. He's got his two-car garage. Kids are through school.
Yeah.
So, people now say, the American dream is dead. Well, I'm like, well, my dad, I've seen not just my dad, my whole family. My family has had a successful bakery, 75 years, a Sicilian bakery. My grandfather set up his own pharmacy and became very wealthy. It wasn't his goal to become wealthy, but was to help people and have his own thing, but he was successful. So if you want to work hard, you can make it happen in the United States.
Yeah. And you can in Europe now, but there's still more of a not a pessimism, but just a skepticism in Europe that I remember when I came to Spain and I started just at the beginning.
Dabbling.
One of my students, 57 years old, a colonel in the military, he said, Richard, I don't know why you're in Spain. You can't get rich and be honest at the same time.
Oh,
and I said, Sancho, his name was Sancho, said, I refuse to believe that. And he was wrong.
Yeah, well, I don't think
he was wrong.
I mean, that's a very blanket statement, as we say. Well, I'm sure some people could do it the right way, you know, without screwing people over. My father told me when I moved to Spain 20 years ago, he said, Alberto, in Spain, if you're going to steal, don't steal 50 euros, steal 50 million.
Oh, right.
That's what he told me. He goes, if you're going to do anything illegal like that, they'll go after the guy who steals 50. But if you steal 50 million, you'll get a slap on the wrist.
Perhaps, yeah.
Okay, a slap on the wrist is an expression that means a very light punishment.
Yeah.
You know? I think he was half joking, but I've seen a lot of people like, how much money did this guy get away with? you know?
But, to finish a little bit on the United States, the Depression lasted the entire decade of the 30s. I mean, my parents lived their best years from age 9 to age 19 in the Depression. Wow. And the only thing that got us out of the Depression was the Second World War. And so my father, after living 10 years in the Depression, had to come to Europe as a pilot fighting in the war.
Where was he stationed?
In England. He was
okay.
a photo reconnaissance pilot. Job to take pictures over Germany.
Yeah, wow.
He had to go fly there, take pictures of potential targets, fly back. They developed the film, sent the bombers, and he had to go back to see if they
hit their target. So he had to put his life in risk just to, figure out.
And they were
the
shooting
situation.
at him. He had to fly alone. Because they had to be surprised. They had to be secret.
Gotcha. Reconnaissance is one of the hardest things because you got to be undetected.
But many of these targets were very fortified with anti-aircraft.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So he almost.
Well, the whole French coast. I mean, you saw those big guns that Hitler and his troops had put up everywhere.
But then after the war, the United States passed a bill. The bill is un proyecto they called the GI Bill.
The GI, General Infantry is GI?
No, GI.
Oh, okay.
GI is a word for a soldier, but it means government issue.
Oh, because I think G.I. Joe, right?
Yeah.
Famous all-American soldier.
I mean, this technical bureaucratic word, government issue.
Yeah.
Misión gubernamental.
Yeah.
And that's for the soldier. And they passed the GI Bill, which every soldier coming back from the war had the right to do their college education for free.
Oh, wow.
For free. Uncle Sam would pay.
Which in the States is expensive.
Uncle Sam would pay. And that changed America because suddenly instead of 5 or 10% of people doing higher education, it was 30 to 40%.
Wow. So that made us a smarter country, so to speak.
And it created the beginning of the American...
The boom, the real boom, which was post-World War II.
Post-World War II.
What you're a boom, my mother too, baby boomer generation, which I guess things were going well, so people had a lot of kids.
Yeah. Also, the rest of the world was destroyed. So
right. Yeah. Dresden, any city you went to.
I mean, Russia, Japan, China.
Yeah.
Great Britain even.
Right.
And France. And so the United States had an incredible advantage.
And we kind of showed our military might there, and people will debate whether dropping the bomb was necessary or unnecessary. But I think there people saw, don't play with the United States.
Yeah. Don't bet against the United States. You'll always lose. But my father when the war ended, he was sent to Berlin the day after. He spent 1 month in Berlin, and then they sent him to Munich, and he stayed there for 2 months. Practicing with different planes, because he was going to be sent for the invasion of Japan.
Oh, so they had him training new planes
to go to Japan.
Wow.
So when Harry Truman...
As they call it, the Pacific Theater. I love the Pacific. I'm like, is there a show going on here or what?
European Theater, the Pacific Theater.
Yeah.
So when Truman dropped those 2 bombs, my father was ecstatic.
He's like, I can go home maybe?
Yeah.
That's why a lot of people who defend it say, how much longer do you want the war to go on?
Yeah. The thing is, the Japanese never surrender.
Yeah.
And so if they wanted to end the war, what we call the unconditional surrender, they would have to invade Japan.
And they were kamikaze. Their own life didn't matter.
Yeah.
They had kamikaze pilots that I will risk my own life to kill 5 Americans if I have to.
Give them away my own life.
Yeah.
And so the calculation was that 1 million American soldiers would die and 2 million Japanese.
Okay.
So 3 million people would die in the invasion of Japan. Mm-hmm. And so Truman said, well, let's. But, Japan also, we have time?
Yeah, we're good. Sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because I have a lunch in 6 minutes.
All right.
As well,
whenever you got to wrap up, I can go on. This is a great conversation. I'm enjoying it.
Japan was also frightened because the Soviet Union was sending the Red Army into Manchuria and the Korean Peninsula with the idea of crossing the Sea of Japan.
Oh, okay.
And that scared them as much or more than the bombs. And with this, I'll rest my case.
Well, I'm just going to ask you one more question. Really interesting, and also it's something, I think you're giving it to us in layman's terms that somebody who's not very familiar with American history, they can follow along. I want to ask you this. What's your favorite patriotic song? Because we love you said God Bless America, America the Beautiful.
Yeah.
I love, and I'll gladly stand up next to her and defend her still today.
My favorite doesn't have words. It's The Stars and Stripes Forever. La da 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 by John Philip Sousa.
Oh, beautiful march.
Yeah.
Gotta love it.
That's military march that I've always liked.
I gotta say something. I've been in Spain for 20 years, but when I hear those songs, those patriotic songs, I get goosebumps. I even get choked up sometimes. You can take the boy out of America, but you can't take America out of the boy.
All right, so you become very patriotic in your old age.
I've always been. I feel very lucky to have grown up in the United States, the education I received, the opportunities. So, okay, I can pick out some things I don't like, especially now.
Yeah.
But we won't get into that. We'll leave that for another podcast.
It's true. All right.
All right, thank you so much to everybody who listened. Thank you to Richard Vaughan. And it's been a pleasure chatting with you on this week's episode of FYI.